Hello. Okay, let's read another Rambler essay from this beautiful 200-year-old volume. The Rambler, of course, is a series of essays by Dr. Samuel Johnson. And today we're going to read Rambler number 45, which is for Tuesday, August 21st, 1750. The title of which is, bear with me while I handle these pages with care, The Causes of Disagreement in Marriage. That should be interesting. All right, so it opens with a bit of Greek, which I can't read, by Eurip, it says, maybe Euripides, I don't know. And then here's translated right here. This is the chief felicity of life, that concord smile on the connubial bed. But now 'tis hatred all. This is the chief felicity of life, that concord smile on the connubial bed. But now 'tis hatred all. So I guess stating what we would like to have, and the peace and agreement. Connubial, I think that has to do with the marital relations, right? But now all hatred, so there's problems. It looks like this one's going to be in the form of another letter to the Rambler, of course written by Dr. Johnson himself, as though someone else were writing to him. To the Rambler. Sir, though in the dissertations which you have given us on marriage, very just cautions are laid down against the common causes of infelicity, and the necessity of having, in that important choice, the first regard to virtue is carefully inculcated. Yet I cannot think the subject so much exhausted, but that a little rejection would present to the mind many questions, in the discussion of which great numbers are interested, and many precepts which deserve to be more particularly and forcibly impressed. You seem, like most of the writers that have gone before you, to have allowed as an uncontested principle that marriage is generally unhappy, in italics, marriage is generally unhappy. So he's challenging the good doctor that that's the case. But I know not whether a man who professes to think for himself and concludes from his own observations does not depart from his character when he follows the crowd thus implicitly and receives maxims without recalling them to a new examination, especially when they comprise so wide a circuit of life and include such a variety of circumstances, as I have an equal right with others to give my opinion on the objects about me, and a better title to determine concerning the state which I have tried, that many who talk of it without experience, I am unwilling to be restrained by mere authority from advancing what I believe an accurate view of the world will confirm, that marriage is not commonly happy, otherwise than as life is unhappy. And that most of those who complain of connubial miseries have as much satisfaction as their nature would have admitted, or their conduct procured, in any other condition. I think I'm following that. It's interesting, this is written as a letter, though, from somebody else. It sure is written, says sound like Dr. Johnson writing, huh? It's rare that he usually changes it up a bit. It is indeed common to hear both sexes repine at their change, relate the happiness of their earlier years, blame the folly and rashness of their own choice, and warn those whom they see coming into the world against the same precipitance and infatuation. But it is to be remembered that the days which they so much wish to call back are the days not only of celibacy, but of youth, the days of novelty and improvement, of ardor and of hope, of health and vigor of body, of gaiety and lightness of heart. It is not easy to surround life with any circumstances in which youth will not be delightful, and I am afraid that, whether married or unmarried, we shall find the vesture of terrestrial existence more heavy and cumbrous the longer it is worn. Wow. So it's not so much that the young years were, it's not so much that it was the folly of the marriage that is the thing. It's just the fact that the contrast between old age in youth or older age in youth. That they censor themselves for the indiscretion of their choice is not a sufficient proof that they have chosen ill, since we see the same discontent at every other part of life which we cannot change. Good point. Converse with almost any man grown old in a profession, and you will find him regretting that he did not enter into some different course, to which he too late finds his genius better adapted. Well put again. Or in which he discovers that wealth and honor are more easily attained. Now here's a quote. "The merchant," says Horace, "envies the soldier, and the soldier recounts the felicity of the merchant. The lawyer, when his clients harass him, calls out for the quiet of the countryman, and the countryman, when business calls him to town, proclaims that there is no happiness but amidst opulence and crowds." End of quote. Every man recounts the inconveniences of his own station, and thinks those of any other less because he has not felt them. Thus the married praise the ease and freedom of a single state, and the single fly to marriage from the weariness of solitude. From all our observations we may collect with certainty that misery is the lot of man, but cannot discover in what particular condition it will find most alleviations, or whether all external appendages are not, as we use them, the causes either of good or ill. Whoever feels great pain naturally hopes for ease from change of posture. He changes it and finds himself equally tormented, and of the same kind are the expedients by which we endeavor to obviate or elude those uneasinesses to which mortality will always be subject. It is not likely that the married state is eminently miserable, since we see such numbers whom the death of their partners has set free from it, entering it again. Wives and husbands are, indeed, incessantly complaining of each other, and there would be reason for imagining that almost every house was infested with perverseness or oppression beyond human sufferance. Did we not know upon how small occasions some minds burst out into lamentations and reproaches, and how naturally every animal revenges his pain upon those who happen to be near, without any nice examination of its cause? We are always willing to fancy ourselves within a little of happiness, and when, with repeated efforts, we cannot reach it, persuade ourselves that it is intercepted by an ill-paired mate, since if we could find any other obstacle, it would be our own fault, and it was not removed. That makes sense. It's much easier to blame others than ourselves, right? Anatomists have often remarked that though our diseases are sufficiently numerous and severe, yet when we inquire into the structure of the body, the tenderness of some parts, the minuteness of others, and the immense multiplicity of animal functions that must concur to the healthful and vigorous exercise of all our powers, there appears reason to wonder rather that we are preserved so long, that we perish so soon, and that our frame subsists for a single day or hour without disorder. I wondered the same thing myself. Rather than that it should be broken or obstructed by violence of accidents or length of time. The same reflection arises in my mind upon observation of the manner in which marriage is frequently contracted. When I see the avaricious and crafty taking companions to their tables and their beds without any injury, but after farms and money, or the giddy and thoughtless uniting themselves for life to those whom they have only seen by the light of tapers at a ball. When parents make articles for their children without inquiring after their consent, when some marry for heirs to disappoint, their brothers and others throw themselves into the arms of those whom they know, whom they do not love, because they have found themselves rejected where they were more solicitous to please. When some marry because their servants cheat them, some because they squander their own money, some because their houses are pestered with company, some because they will live like other people, and some only because they are sick of themselves, I am not so much inclined to wonder that marriage is sometimes unhappy, and that it appears so little loaded with calamity, and cannot but conclude that society has something in itself eminently agreeable to human nature, when I find its pleasures so great, and even the ill choice of a companion can hardly overbalance them. By the ancient custom of the Muscovites, the men and women never saw each other till they were joined beyond the power of parting. It may be suspected that by this method many unsuitable matches were produced, and many tempers associated that were not qualified to give pleasure to each other. Yet, perhaps, among a people so little delicate, where paucity of gratifications and the uniformity of life gave no opportunity for imagination to interpose its objections, there was not much danger of capricious dislike, and while they felt neither cold nor hunger, they might live quietly together without any thought of the defects of one another. Among us, whom knowledge has made nice and affluence wanton, there are, indeed, more cautions requisite to secure tranquility. And yet, if we observe the manner in which those converse who have singled out each other for marriage, we shall perhaps not think that the Russians lost much by their restraint. For the whole endeavor of both parties during the time of courtship is to hinder themselves from being known, and to disguise their natural temper and real desires in hypocritical imitation, studied compliance, and continual affectation. From the time that their love is avowed, neither sees the other but in a mask, and the cheat is managed often on both sides with so much art, and discovered afterwards with so much abruptness, that each has reason to suspect that some transformation has happened on the wedding night, and that by the strange imposture one has been courted and another married. I desire you, therefore, Mr. Rambler, to question all who shall hereafter come to you with matrimonial complaints concerning their behavior at the time of courtship, and inform them that they are neither to wonder nor to repine when a contract begun with fraud has ended in disappointment. I am, etc. And then there's no sign, because of course it's just fiction made up by Dr. Johnson. So it sounds like he's laying out the case that, so sure, they complain as they get older, married couples, of issues, but there are a number of reasons for that, not necessarily related to the marriage, although some may be, namely the contrast between youth and older age, when the responsibilities bear upon us. And it seemed like the days of our young years were more halcyon and true and better, and we long for that, and we attribute the difference to the marriage itself, when it's really just a fact of life and growing old. He also mentions how, in fact, some circumstances bring people together and they get married when they may not be well suited, which is not necessarily the blame of the couples, but of the society itself, as well as other numerous and interesting thoughts related to marriage. Thanks for joining me. That was fun. See you later.